Good morning, guys, and welcome to part 65 of the Emergency Storage Shed Cleanout series. Before we go any further, that blue jacket, a few of you have asked about it. It's been hanging around in the background for like a long time, like some sort of navy blue ghost from the past. It should be in the shop. It actually came from a series we did, and I think it was called the Great Radio Shed Cleanout or something. It was probably a couple of years ago, maybe nearly 3 years ago. We did a big clean out job in a nearby town where the guy was in the RAF. He was in the Australian Air Force, and then he got into electronics, and we found, I'm still going through stuff, and there's still a lot of boxes from that deal in the emergency storage shed. I did a playlist on that, but it kind of fizzled out because when I had to move from my other shop, it all got mixed up. Back to the jacket. It's a World War II era Royal Australian Air Force jacket, or I think it just says Air Force. It's dated 1943. It should be cleaned up and put in the shop. It just kind of got hung there and I never got back to it. I wasn't sure if I should. Well, I don't think I can put it in the washing machine because I think it's wool. So I'll probably just give it a brush off and put it in the shop, but I just haven't got to it yet. So until we get to that, it's the Blue Ghost. Right, this episode of the Emergency Storage Shed Cleanout series, we're going to start on that large shelf with lots of electronics gear, computer stuff. A few boxes down the bottom we've got to get to first. So we've nearly got enough room in here to actually start doing my introductions in here, which is great. So we're going to tackle this shelf on this wall next. There's a lot of TVs, computer monitors, vintage computer stuff, electronics, lots of random bits and pieces, but yeah, there's certainly a lot of vintage computers there. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. We'll address each one as we come to it. I know some people like scrapping out the old computers, but other people say, you shouldn't do that. The motherboards will sell well on eBay and all that sort of stuff. We'll check it out and we'll work out what to do. I'm going to start with this yellow crate, which I don't think is electronics. There's a power cord. It looks like there's a drill. We better go through that first because it's obviously in the road. I want to clear the bottom shelf off before we go any higher. Toolbox, could be tools. We'll look at that next episode. Let's start with that yellow crate. Okay, well, it is all power tools. It's mostly drills. So, oops, and the crate's a bit brittle. I nearly dropped that. We'll go through it quickly. I don't want to waste too much time. And a lot of these will just be probably either scrapped or tested and sold cheaply. So let's go through them. And I also have something else to report. In the recent episode of this series, I think it was part 61, we had a nice cast iron spirit level with an adjustable incline level on it. And I think it was made by Starrett, quite a famous US tool company. I valued it at $85. A few of you suggested it might be a good one for eBay. So I put it on eBay. It had quite a few watches. I did start it at $95 on eBay because obviously we've got fees. And then there was about $18 postage. So it made it a bit more expensive. It circled through once or twice as a listing. Ended up not selling on there because, even though I had about 5 or 6 watches, because someone came in the shop and spotted it and I sold it to them for $85. So I just cancelled the eBay auction. So we got exactly what we valued it at. The guy was really happy. And the fact that I'd run it through eBay once or twice as an auction first means that it wasn't worth a lot more. Otherwise, if it was a really rare level, everyone would have jumped on it and it might have made hundreds. So eBay is kind of handy sometimes just as a backstop to make sure you're not selling something that's super rare and super valuable through the shop. So I'm very happy with that. $85 back in the kitty. And we've got a happy customer. Let's have a look at these mostly drills. There's a sander as well. Work out what we're going to do. Now, I say often on my channel that sometimes it's not about hunting. Well, it is hunting for treasures. We like finding treasures. But a lot of times it's just showing you guys what to do with stuff, how I deal with average things that come out of people's sheds. I don't like the idea of people cleaning up a place, getting a skip in and throwing it all in the skip. So I'm basically showing you what I do with stuff. So this is a vintage Makita drill. It's a corded drill, obviously. I think this is one I used to use in my workshop years ago, and they're a good, solid, hard-working, honest drill. They very rarely give any grief. They've got a lot of torque. I do have a Hitachi drill here, which is quite good, but I think this will be a good one to use for more rougher work like, masonry bits, drilling holes in concrete. I don't think it's a hammer drill. It has 2 speeds though. So I'll probably hang on to this one. I think I put a new cord on it once upon a time. So anyway, I'll test that and make sure it's safe, but I will hang on to that one. If I was to sell it in this condition, it's probably only going to be a $20 or $30 drill, and I would need to test it first to make sure it's safe. But I think that would be a good one for a bit of rough work around the place. Okay, we have everything else is a drill. Oh no, there's an angle grinder and a sander. All right, so this is an Ozito, which is a cheaper brand. They're sold at Bunnings and some of your chain hardware stores. It doesn't look damaged. Remains of some sandpaper there, but it looks okay. It's a bit faded. The important thing I want to check first is the cord. The little boots come off, which fits in the end there. Because if it needs a new cord, it's just not worth it. I'll just scrap it for an electric motor. So just run my fingers along the cord to make sure there's no nicks or cuts. And other than the fact that that boot hasn't actually broken, it's just pulled out of the housing. So the cord looks fine. The plug's okay. I think what I'll do is I'll just test it. If it sounds all right, I will just blow it off with a compressed air so it looks a bit neater. We'll just push this plug back into there, maybe with a little bit of silicone. It'll only take a minute or so. And as long as it sounds good and okay and tests all right on my tester, I'll probably just put $10 on the shop. It's worth doing it for $10. You don't get $10 worth of scrap out of these. So we'll test that soon. And probably a similar process with most of these. This is an older Black & Decker drill. Again, I'll check the cord. The cord looks okay. I'll run my fingers down it in a minute. It's got a broken drill bit in it. The chuck's a bit rusty. And it sounds very noisy in the bearings. We'll give it a test as well, though. It might well sound okay, and if it doesn't, it'll be straight in the scrap bin. So yeah, same process with all of these. This one's a Black & Decker as well. It's got a cast aluminium gear case. The other one was just plastic. So yep, we'll check the cord, we'll put it on the tester, and they're only going to be $10 if they sound really good and they test okay. For anything less, it's not worth my while testing them. This one looks terribly dirty. It's a Skill, S-K-I-L. I'm thinking that's going to go straight in the scrap. That one, the cord looks pretty rough. The boot's all perished. The chuck's very rusty. It does still turn. Yep, I'm going to put that straight in the scrap bin. I'll chop the cord off. I think we could get away with the drill complete. I'll take that handle off. But I think the drill complete could go in with electric motors, just without taking it all apart, and chop the cord off. So that's going to be scrap. This one's an older one. It's a fully metal case, cast aluminium case. It is a Black & Decker, but that's a cool looking old drill actually. The old switch type trigger. I like the look of that. I think that's old enough to be collectible. I don't know if it's going to run or not. It's still got the chuck key with it. So we might test that. If it's electrically safe, we could sell that just as a vintage Black & Decker drill. That would have to be, I reckon, 1960s. And I think that would be made in Australia. They made them in Croydon, Victoria, which is a suburb of Melbourne. So yeah, nice vintage drill there. It looks pretty cool. We might nearly get 20 for that if it works. Okay, an angle grinder with a large sanding disc on it. We might take that off. We can't even read what brand it is. There's nothing left on the sticker, and that sticker's gone completely. I think it would only be a cheapie. Oh, it may have been a Bosch or something. It's that sort of colour. Bit hard to tell. But I think it's unlikely that that's going to be worth selling. Yeah, it needs rewiring, so I'm not going to go to that trouble. That will probably be a scrap as well. And the last one is a Skill drill, probably again the 70s or so. It feels like it's seized up. They've put the chuck key in the chuck there. So we'll test that one as well. It's probably clean enough to sell, although the chuck's very rusty, but it feels like it's got a problem inside, unless that's just the gearing. So yeah, very little value in this box, I'm afraid, but at least we've emptied it. So I'll get the tester out, we'll test a few of those, and some of the others we'll just process for scrap. Okay, I have my appliance tester here. Let's work through these quickly in no particular order. So this one will be earthed. It's got an earth pin, and it looks like there's an earth wire in there. It needs to be because it's a metal casing. So we'll plug it into our tester. I've checked the cord, there's no cuts to the cord. We'll clip the earth thingo somewhere on the casing, if we can get an earth without sticking it anywhere in the motor. Or probably best just to go on the chuck. Oh no, it's going to spin, isn't it? That will do for the moment. Let's turn it on without touching it. And the earth is a pass. It checks out on the appliance tester. Let's see what happens when we run it. That sounds very good. All right, nice little drill then. Really just needs a little bit of a clean up. I might just buff the chuck up on the wire wheel just so it looks a bit better. But I can actually put a safety test on, a tag on that now. Everything checks out safety wise, and I think we'll get $20 for that vintage drill, so that's all right. Okay, next one. This skill. Let's quickly check the cord. I haven't checked this one. Cord looks okay. It actually says in big letters it's double insulated, so we know that there's not going to be an earth pin. Let's turn that back off. Plug this in. Power it up. It passes. And we will see if it makes appropriate noises. That sounds pretty good too. Now this was one that, yeah, it's very hard to turn. In fact, you can't really turn it. It's just the way that it's geared. So that sounds pretty good. Again, I might just buff the chuck up so it looks a bit nicer. We can probably put the handle that I took off the other one. We can probably screw onto this. No, it's the wrong thread. Or is it? Maybe the thread's just damaged. Looks a bit out of proportion anyway. So we'll leave that handle off it. But look, with a quick cleanup of the chuck, we know it's safe now. I can put a tag on it, easily get $10 for that. And it sounds like it's got plenty of torque. Yeah, that's good. Next, let's go for this old Black & Decker, probably a 70s one. Now, it looks pretty dirty. I'm not going to spend too much time cleaning them up. Let's check the cord. And the plug, it all looks okay, but I'm not a fan of this one. It just looks too dirty. It probably should run an earth wire in this one as well. We have metal casing there. So let's clip our earth lead on somewhere. You'd have to find an earth spot. I might just hold it on there. I'll power it up. No, we're not getting an earth. It may, of course, be double insulated, but usually if they've got metal casings, it's still actually on. Ah, it is double insulated. Okay, so we don't need to worry about the earth. And let's see what it does. It runs, but it's very tight. Yeah, I don't think that will last very long at all. Given it's so dirty, I'm just going to scrap that one. Now, this Black & Decker, it will definitely be double insulated. It's got that double square symbol, so it is. The cord looked okay on this one. Let's see if it runs. Okay, that sounds better than I expected. It passes. I think it's probably worth cleaning up. It's not damaged. It's not overly dirty, and the cord looks good. That might be a $10 candidate. The sander's next. It's definitely be double insulated. In fact, it doesn't even have an earth pin. So let's see what this sounds like. Looks okay on the tester. I'll clamp that back there. Yeah, it sounds a little bit rough, but it's still working. The cords, yeah, that's okay. So we do have this boot to put back in, but I think this one's worth just a quick clean up. Yeah, I can get that thing to, I might put a bit of silicone and I'll squash that back in. So that one passes as well. I think we'll get $10 for that. It's a sort of tool that someone will use for a job and just use it until it blows up and then throw it out, but they'll get $10 worth of use out of it. Okay, what have we got left? We've got the angle grinder. I think we decided, yeah, the cord is very dodgy on the plug there. I'm just going to scrap that one straight out. Not even going to test that one. This old drill, same deal. I'm not even going to test it. It just looks absolutely shocking. The cord's perished. It's very rusty and dirty. So another scrapper. And the last one is my old Makita. We'll give that a bit of a test to make sure it's safe. The cord looked alright, even though it's been a replacement. I think it came off a heater actually. So let's plug that in. And that will probably be double insulated, being a, yes, big square there, double square. Let's turn it on. These are a great drill. They have so much torque. Yep, that's all good. Tested safe. So I will put that in my toolkit here. And it looks like we're going to have 10, 20, 30, and one at $20 makes $50 and a bit of scrap. Okay, here's the items I'm going to sell. I've just cleaned them up. I didn't show it because it wasn't that interesting, but geez, they cleaned up well. All I did was wipe a rag over them and then spray a little bit of Armor All. This stuff, and it brings up the plastic very nice. It tends to take all the chalkiness away from the old plastic that's sun affected. It probably doesn't cure it completely, but it makes them look a lot nicer to sell. This one actually looks near new. And the chucks I just buffed up on the wire wheel only took a minute or so on each one. I didn't do much with this one other than just wipe it over. And I tend to use toilet rolls just to contain the cord. Just the inner tube from toilet rolls. I find them very handy, stops the cords getting all tangled. All I need to do with these ones now is just put the tag on them, given that they've all been tested. And I think I'll go a little bit higher than what I estimated because they cleaned up so well and they seem to run nicely. So I'm going to go 15. I'll stick with 20 on that one, so that's 50, and just 10 on this one because it is a little rattly and it's only a very cheap brand anyway. So $60 back on those ones. Is that right? 15, 30, 50, 60. I must have added up wrong last time, did I? Oh no, that's right. $10 more. So that's done. Didn't take long at all. Not a bad return, and someone will get some use out of these because they are super cheap and a lot better quality probably than what you buy nowadays, particularly with that Skill and that Black & Decker. So there's $60. I won't worry about the notepad, but we will just scrap out the others just to show you what I do and what materials I salvage from them. Okay, let's scrap these last three items out and see just how much value we get out of them for scrap metal. You might be saying $10 or $15 isn't much to get for a drill, but it probably will be quite a lot more than what we get for scrap. So I'm just trying to undo this. I don't have a tool for this, so usually you can jar them with a punch and they will undo. They take a bit sometimes. In fact, if you've obviously got one of these that you use, you won't want to damage it, but we're scrapping it anyway. I'll probably just free it up by hitting around here with the hammer. And now it should be free. Not sure if I think it's moving. Now, it probably doesn't have... Let's get the cord out of the road, actually. Let's chop it off. We're going to chop it off anyway. And the plug. Now, some scrappers do keep the plugs and get the brass pins out of them. I don't bother. And she's wrapped around the sanding disc here. Oh, this cord's had a repair too, so definitely scrap. I'll just pull this remains of the plug boot off, or the rubber boot thing there. Right, so there we have some insulated copper wire. We'll weigh that up at the end just to see how much we get. And now this doesn't have a locking button, some of them do, so we need to hold this with a spanner. I've got one there that sort of fits. Now, yep, we got that loose enough. All right, so all I'm going to do with these and this grinder and the drills, just sell them as electric motors. I'm not going to pull the copper wire out. They can go in our heavy melt steel. Sometimes I do keep these collars. If I think it's one that I will use, that one's quite worn, so we're not going to use that. The sandpaper's not much good. And the backing disc looks pretty well had it. Okay, so I'm not going to take the gearbox apart on this. I will take the handle off. And again, sometimes I do sell these handles. If they're in good condition, I just put them in the dollar box at the shop. That one's not really that good. So I think we'll get away with selling that just complete as it is as an electric motor, because that's pretty much all it is. Electric motor here, gearbox on the end. We do have a bit of weight there, which will help our bottom line. If you have a whole load of these, your scrapyard might say, hey, look, we can't take them as electric motors, but one or two in a load of normal motors is going to be fine. And as I said before, I'm certainly not going to muck around trying to get the copper wire out of it. So that one's done. The drill, much the same. Let's chop the cord off. And the plug. And it looks like it used to have a chuck key tied to that, but not anymore. Now the drill, if you had one or two of them, you could probably sneak them in like this. Depends on your yard, actually. I usually take the covers off, or at least the handle off. This one's not going to come apart very easily. And there's not much weight in the handle here, so I think we would get away with throwing that in the electric motors. But again, I wouldn't do a whole load of these. And the other one, exactly the same. Cord off. They're nice heavy cords, they should weigh a bit. Plug off the other end. I'll take the remains of this rubber thing off. So there's our three cords. And this one looks like the handle assembly comes off. We'll take that off. On more modern drills, I sometimes save the switch assembly in case I have to do a repair on a similar model, but I'm not going to worry with these old ones. And if the hardware comes out nice and clean, I'll save them. But these ones are a bit rusty on the head, so they can just go in the scrap steel. Bit of encouragement. Handle. Other half of the handle with a switch and a capacitor and even a spider's web. So I'm not going to worry about taking those off. They can go into electric motors just as it is. At least it looks a little less like a drill. So we'll weigh those ones up. Those ones can just go in the bin. We have some scrap steel. The plugs can go into the box to go to the e-waste at the transfer station, and we could have put the handles of the drill in there too. So let's send all that to the e-waste. There's still a bit of wire in that. Alright, so let's check our scrap value. We'll put our cords on here. Now, insulated copper wire was getting over $4 a kilo. It has done for quite some time. I'm not sure what it is now, but even at $4, there's half a kilo there. So $2 worth of cords. And our electric motors, have been over $1 a kilo. Let's just work on $1. So we'll stack those up there. 5 kilos, pretty well exactly. Can you see that? There we go, 5 kilos. So $1 a kilo, $5 there for the electric motor. So we've got $7 out of 3 items for scrap. And the ones that I cleaned up were, well, minimum of 10 for the sander and 15 for the others. You can see why I'd prefer to sell them as goers. But obviously when they're this sad, just scrap. So there you go, guys. That's how I deal with secondhand and older power tools, and we get lots of them, not only in the e-waste, but when we clean out people's sheds, there's always a good collection of power tools, and quite often they're cheapies. Sometimes you find a good one, but that's how I sort them. That's how I deal with them. I do scrap some. I'd prefer to sell them if they're saleable and if they're worth the effort, and we get a bit of a return out of it. At least they're not just thrown out. So our total was 60 plus 7, so $67 out of this one tub. I'm going to have lots more power tools, and pretty much I won't go into this sort of detail again, but you know how it goes. So put your comments below on how you deal with old power tools. Does your yard take them as a complete tool in the electric motors, or do you like to micro scrap them and pull out every skerrick of copper wire and cast aluminium housings and all that stuff? And if you do, what do you do with the plastic casings? So thanks for watching, guys. Our total in my notepad now is up to $10,624. And yeah, we added $67 today. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you next week in the next episode of the Emergency Storage Shed Clean Out series. Bye for now.